Okay, so we're given two curves here, and we're asked to find the function. Now, there are several options or several answers for this. We know that because of the phase shift, we could just shift the sine curve over and end up on top of the same curve, and we know the relationship between the cosine and the sine. Okay, so there's a bunch of ways to get an answer for these problems, but we're going to do the simplest way. So the first things first, I need to know what my answer looks like, right? That's always important. So I know that at its most complicated, these curves could be some amplitude times the sine of some number k that relates to the period, right? T equals 2 pi over k. And then possibly plus some kind of vertical shift, right? And this is the amplitude, which is half the distance that it travels from top to bottom. Okay, and of course the last thing would be the phase shift, right? How far you're moving left to right. So that's about as complicated as it gets. The good news is that in part A, I don't have to worry about a phase shift because I can see this guy starts at the origin. So I know I can find a sine curve that fits this function, or fits this graph, I should say. Okay, so for part A, then, I know that my answer is going to look something like this: some kind of amplitude, sine kx, and that's it. There's no vertical shift. There's no phase shift. Okay, so that makes it easy. I can see. So the amplitude is the distance from here to here, right, or half the distance of the whole way it would travel. Same thing. In this case, it's a half, so that's good. So I can fill that in there. I also notice that it's flipped upside down, right? Normally the sine curve, let me use orange, normally the sine curve would go up, right, and start going like that. But this sine curve starts going down, which means it's been reflected around the x-axis, so I just need to make all the outputs negative, or just tack on a negative to my function. So negative 1/2 sine kx. And now all I need to do is solve for k. Alright, so let me trace this curve in green. It goes through one complete cycle after one. Right, so one complete cycle, which means the period is 1. So that is 1 equals 2 pi over k. Solve that guy for k. Well, that's easy. K would have to be 2 pi, right? Multiply both sides by k. K is 2 pi, so I'm done. Y equals negative 1/2 times the sine of 2 pi x. That's the answer for part A. Now for part B, I can see again that this is looks like a sine curve that's been moved up 1, right? Let me draw the non-shifted guy. It would just look like this, something like that. Okay. Oh, and by the way, you're going to need these markings, so let me fill those in. That's a typo on your review. Based on the answer key you're given, that should be 4 pi, that should be 2 pi, that should be 4 pi, negative 2 pi, negative 4 pi. Okay, so go ahead and look at my green curve right now. What I want is to figure this guy out, and we notice it's just been moved up 1. All these points have just been shifted up 1. Okay, so that tells me that my vertical shift is 1. So this guy will have the form y equals a sine kx. Doesn't appear to be shifted left to right, plus h. Okay, so I can see the amplitude here is 1. That's the distance. The total distance, let me explain this one a little bit differently. The total distance it travels vertically from bottom to top is 2. So the amplitude is half that. Okay, or another way to think about it is just how far does it go from its center, right, up to the top. It's kind of the same question, so that would be 1. So amplitude of this guy is 1. This one hasn't been reflected, so I don't need a negative in front. The relationship between the period and that value k goes like this, same as before, 2 pi over k. And in this case, I can see that it goes through one full cycle at 4 pi once I filled that in for you. So 4 pi equals 2 pi over k. If you want cross multiply to solve this guy, You get 2 pi over 4 pi equals k, making k equal to 1/2. Right? Should I do one more step? Let me do one more step for that one. So if you have 4 pi, alright, so let's set that up again. The period is 4 pi, which I get from the graph, and that's equal to 2 pi over k. So solve this, multiply both sides by k, or cross multiply. So you get k times 4 pi equals 2 pi, and then of course you would divide by 4 pi. So that's where I'm getting k to be 1/2. Okay? That's key to the problem. So I found k. So let's see, I think I have everything I need. That's 1/2. That's 1. And that's 1. Right? So I'm done. So my answer then is, for part B, y equals 1 sine times 1/2 x plus 1.